Hey, it's Dr. C. Glad you could make it today. I think spring has sprung, so that's great. But now we're not going to talk about a spring type issue today. We're going to talk about death in dying. Started out being called euthanasia. Then, with a bad connotation, they changed the name to mercy killing. Then it was changed to assisted suicide. Then changed to self-administered suicide. Got to get that name suicide out of there, so now they called it death with dignity. And then they called it the right to life. Then they called it end of life options. And in fact, now they call it medical aid in dying, MAID. Medical aid in dying. Why all these damn names? Well, I always start these things out with definitions. Let's give you the definition. What the hell is suicide? Well, obviously, it's the act of killing yourself intentionally. Simple. Killing yourself intentionally. It's not a small matter. In the United States, when the statistics were still accurate and all, in 2023, in the United States, 49,300 people committed suicide. At least that was on the record. In the world in 2023, it's a big deal. 720,000 suicides just in that 1 year worldwide. So, not a small issue. When I looked into all this too, with the definition of suicide, I couldn't find accurate estimates. Why? Because assisted suicide, as part of the legal contract and all, is not considered suicide. Yeah. You can do yourself in and it's not a suicide if you do it with assisted suicide. None of this makes any sense, but this is what I'm giving you is reality. So, okay, let's go on with another definition, right? Okay. Euthanasia, we talked about the intentional termination of a life to relieve suffering. Okay, that's euthanasia. Another one, assisted suicide. Procedure in which the people take prescribed medicines to end their life. And it can be voluntary. In other words, you do it solo. Well, not totally solo, but nevertheless, voluntary or even involuntary. And it can be active or it can be passive. In other words, you remember the Shivo case in Massachusetts? It was passive suicide. Eliminated a nutrition or hydration. Eliminated that, didn't give anything, but that ended life. Okay? So, that is assisted suicide. And now, what is the definition of this medical aid in dying? That's the latest of all of the names for all of these things. That's the latest. Medical aid in dying. And it's, again, very legally worded. And I'll explain why. Legally worded. And so, basically, it is the legal end of life option that allows mentally competent adults to self-administer prescribed medication to end their life. Okay. They got all the little bells in there now. bells and whistles now, trying to make it as legal as possible. So those are the definitions we need to discuss and the basis for it. I think you need to know a little bit of background, a little history. Let's do the history part. Yeah, I love history. Back in the early days before Christ, in fact 399 BC, Socrates drank a little bit of hemlock, killed himself. He was actually supposed to be put to death because of some discretion that he supposedly was teaching the students and all. And he decided to just take the hemlock. Hemlock it's a plant, and it does have properties to end your life. And so that happened right around the same time that Hippocrates established the Hippocratic Oath for doctors. You're not supposed to do anything that's going to harm or kill a patient. I will not harm my patient. And we all take that oath when we become a doctor. Okay, we got it. All the religions in the world all got to get into the act as well. And so for many centuries, the religions fought any form of suicide. And so let's go on in history then. The ethics of suicides go way back, fighting on both sides. There's a fellow by the name of Samuel Williams. He was not a doctor, but it's of note that he gave a lecture one year. In fact, in 1870, he actually lectured to a group of doctors about assisted suicide. You all remember, now I remember very acutely, Jack Kevorkian in the 1980s. Well, Jack took it upon himself, he was a pathologist incidentally, and he took it upon himself to make a little machine. He made it out of the stuff that was in his garage. It wasn't an expensive machine, but what it did is that it delivered toxic doses of chemicals that he put into the syringes and all in the machine that would end your life. And he always supervised his subjects, basically. He was responsible for over 130 witnessed assisted suicides. Got a lot of controversy, a lot. And in fact, with one of them, he actually was on trial and was convicted. So that was poor Jack. And so things went on from the 1980s, but 1980 was also another interesting year. There was a group called the Hemlock Society, and there were 3 people who helped to co-found that Hemlock Society, which would allow assisted suicide. One of the most prolific of the co-founders was a man named Derek Humphrey. He wrote several books. The very first one was about his wife, who had terminal breast cancer. This was in 1975. The book was called Jean's Way. Had a very good purchase rate on that book. He also wrote a book, Let Me Die Before I Wake. Whoa, okay. And then he had his final book called The Final Exit. That was actually a bestseller. Final Exit. Well, he and Fay Gersh, who's, I guess, the leading proponent then, founded the Hemlock Society in 1980. Their motto was good life, good death. Very impressive so far. But it took roughly 17 years, actually 14 years, 1994, when the state of Oregon passed the law allowing assisted suicide. And so they've been doing it there since 1994. And so now, every year, the bills now are made up by the Hemlock Society, and well, that's progressed since then, but made up by them, a group of lawyers. So it's all legal. And as they go from year to year in each state, trying to pass a bill allowing for assisted suicide. It's been in Massachusetts before the legislature now. It's into the 14th year now that they have tried to pass this bill. And I have a copy of the bill, both the House version and the Senate version. It's House version H2505 this year, and the Senate version is S1486. They're both identical bills, basically. Well, what happened to that Hemlock Society as they were trying to get all these states to get on the bandwagon now? And there's now 14 states, because New York just passed it as well. 14 states and D.C., District of Columbia, have passed it. Of course, there's a number of countries that have passed it. Canada is the most significant one. Well, it isn't the most, but it is a significant one because they allow not just assisted suicide, but they allow euthanasia as well. So the statistics that come out of Canada don't necessarily pertain to the people in Massachusetts. But we use them periodically. Okay. I like to follow the money, basically. And that's not a bad way to do it. Who are the proponents and who are the ones against this bill? Well, the ones for the bill, primarily for the bill, are compassion and choice. How did we get to compassion and choice? Because the Hemlock Society originally combined with another agency that was out to allow assisted suicide. And so they called themselves then Death with Dignity. Then they got together again as the bill matured, and they call themselves now Compassion and Choice. There's another group out there too, Death and Dignity and Final Exit, two more. But they go in individual states where they have strong legal components to their advocacy. The ones who are against it, basically, well, obviously the religious groups, and in Massachusetts, it's the Massachusetts Catholic Conference. So people, for example, in central Massachusetts, it would be under the bishop and the people who are supporting that, against that bill. So, and also there's an international group, Aging with Dignity. And it was run, well, actually it started with Mother Teresa. And you remember Mother Teresa of Calcutta and all. And there was a fellow by the name of Jim Toohey. He was the legal consultation to Mother Teresa. And so he actually worked with Mother Teresa for a couple of years. They produced what were called 5 wishes, people who wanted to have an advance directive. They wanted to tell people how they wanted to die, etc. And so they produced the 5 wishes. That took off, and it's still taking off. It's in every country, the 5 wishes. And they are accepted, even in Massachusetts, accepted for an advance directive. So that's their major goal. But one of their other goals is fighting this medical assistance in death. Okay, so those are the proponents, and those are the ones who are against it. Where do they get their funding? They get donations. Mostly the people who donate to Compassion and Choice are people who have lost loved ones. And so I can understand from their viewpoint. They had a person in their family who was dying, had a lot of pain, had less than 6 months to live, and they chose to have the assisted suicide. Okay. Now, who's funding the religious organizations? Not easy to find out. I guess there's a certain amount of the budget every year that goes into fighting a lot of these legal issues that the Catholic Conference faces. Okay. The only change now is that the original Jim Toohey, it's now his son, Jamie Toohey, that runs it. That's about the only difference, really. Okay. So what are their arguments? What are the major arguments for and against medical aid in death? The 4 is autonomy. We should have control over not only how we live, but how we die. Total control. That's their number 1. The right to make your own choice in how you want to die. They claim that a lot of people use it to relieve suffering. And they claim that the medical community does not put a lot of money into the end of life with people, and that palliative and hospice care does not cut the bill. You need to have another choice, another option. Personally, I think that hospice care basically is assisted suicide as well. Only it's hidden behind. When you get your little box of meds every month, if you're on hospice care, what's in there? Morphine, liquid morphine. Now, when my mother was in a nursing home, she was on hospice care, which I thought was, okay, this is the way to go. She's got less than 6 months. She was 99, didn't have any future. Okay. But they gave her additional doses of morphine all the time, per doctor's orders, of course. Bull. Doctor never even saw her and gave her large doses of morphine, and she expired. Now, that's my perspective. And it's different, obviously, for everybody. But the bottom line, got a dead person. Okay. So let's go through, again, you got the autonomy, relief of suffering. Then there's a principle of beneficence, that it is the duty of the doctor to act in the best interest of the patient. That's not what the Hippocratic Oath says. You just do no harm. Does that mean you should act in the best interest of the patient? Well, that's debatable. And then their final argument, dignity in death. What kind of dignity in death is there? I don't know. Those are their arguments. Now, what do the people who are against it say? What do they say? There's a certain sanctity to life. You know, we were always taught we were made to the image and likeness of God. Whoa, I look like God. Okay, listen. there's arguments on both sides, but there is a certain sanctity to life itself. And what this does, assisted suicide, is that it lessens the value of life. And they claim, if you're in another country and you see, oh, United States, they're getting rid of their elderly, just like they get rid of the unborn child. Okay, getting all of the vulnerable people on both ends, that's their argument. That's their argument. Not my argument, their argument. And that there's a tremendous potential for abuse. Now, again, I don't like to use Canadian statistics, but what happened in Canada? Remember, they approved both euthanasia and assisted suicide. Well, there are people in Ontario who got the medication for the assisted suicide, got that medication the same day they applied and killed themselves the next day. A large number of people. They have a very high suicide rate in Canada. They have better statistics than we do because we don't count it as a suicide if it's assisted suicide. Okay, so we need to look at that. And we need to look at where our healthcare system is going. Why aren't they getting monies into palliative care and hospice care? Because it doesn't pay. It doesn't pay. Why should a doctor go into palliative care when he's going to earn half the money he would earn out in practice? So there are some basic things that need to be done. So there's some issues too in the medication that's used for assisted suicide. Oh, incidentally, the Compassion and Choice never uses the term suicide. No. Medical aid in dying, okay, that's okay, aid, but no. And they also got off the using the word physician. Now, if you're a PA or a nurse practitioner, you can also prescribe medication to end life in many of the states. Remember, there's 14 states now. The medications that are used, at least the ones that are emphasized by Compassion and Choice, they would give you, first of all, something to relax you. They used Valium, they use midazolam. They use that first, half hour before you go in. You're cautioned not to take any not any fatty foods for about a half a day before. Then they give you an anti-nausea medication. Usually they use a thing like Nonceron, but nevertheless, they use an anti-nausea medicine an hour before. Then they give you a medication called digoxin. That slows the heart rate down. Then they give you a medication, usually a tricyclic antidepressant, which slows down the gut as well. And then finally, the major thing, they give you a large dose of either phenobarbital or pentobarbital. So that whole regimen is called DDMAPH. So they use 5 different drugs. 5 different drugs. Now, who's a candidate for this? In the, at least according to the Massachusetts bill. Well, you have to be, first of all, over the age of 18. Under 18 has been used in other states. You have to have 2 doctors who say you only have 6 months to live. You need to be mentally capable, so you need a shrink, a psychiatrist. And most of the bills will allow a social worker to take that initiative. You need to make a voluntary request in writing. And the requests, you need 2 of them, usually 15 days apart, according to this bill. You can also change your mind at any time during this whole process. And you also have to offer all the options, and the person has to agree to that. And finally, the person who is going to do this has to notify the family ahead of time, in case there's a significant battle with that. Okay, so that is the Massachusetts recommended bill. And like I said, they have gone ahead and over the years have changed things, so they put in all of the what they call safeguards, the safeguards in this. So what are all those safeguards? Well, 2 written requests, notify the family, confirm the diagnosis by 2 qualified doctors, being of sound mind confirmed by a mental health provider, voluntary decision, no coercion. 2 independent witnesses have to sign this thing. They have to be independent, not people in the family. You must complete all that documentation. It has to be all registered. And it will not be considered a suicide. And there's no penalty to providers. Now, a couple of things about those last 2 things. I'd hate the word, don't use suicide. Now that is, how can people tell you when you've done the assisted suicide that you didn't commit suicide? I don't understand that part. And also no penalty for providers. Remember, they're not using the word physician anymore because they want to broaden the people who will make those decisions for you. So that is before the legislature, and it may or may not pass. Remember, this is the 14th year now that this has been before our legislature in Boston, and it is still in committee. And the next meeting of committee is not till May. So that's where we're at. And I guess that's where I'm at too, because I've just used up my time. This is Dr. C. Have a good day.